Psalm 34:3 is engraved on the inside of Mom and Dad's wedding rings. It was a purposeful decision that they made, one that they didn't take lightly. They founded their marriage on magnifying, worshiping, loving, and serving the Lord together. I was beside Mom's bed in the ICU, and her kidneys had pretty much shut down because of sepsis, and so she had put on, I don't know, a lot of weight, a lot of water in her limbs and her extremities and in her hand. And so the concern was that her hands were so puffy that her wedding ring was going to cut off circulation in her finger and do some damage to her tissues. And so the decision was made that the rings have to come off. So over the next 24 hours, I watched multiple sets of people come in there and try all kinds of things. They tried the soap. They tried the petroleum jelly. They tourniquet her little finger and left it on there for like 15 minutes with this slippery plastic stuff, and then tried to slide it off. That didn't work. They put a glove on her hand to try and compress her hand and reduce the swelling, and then put a string around it and did some little, the nurses were watching TikTok, okay? They had exhausted all normal procedures to get these rings off. And so they had resorted to looking at TikTok, and they tried everything. So they tried for over 24 hours because Mom didn't want the rings cut off. So at the end of about a 24-hour period, and at least 5 or 6 different groups of people coming in there, the decision was made, Mrs. Hannah, we have to cut them off. We have to cut your rings off. And she told them the same thing that she told everybody else. She said, they've been on for 61 years. I don't think they're coming off. So a maintenance man came into the room, and he had some side cuts and some various other tools, and they cut those rings off. They cut the ring, and they pulled it apart, and they twisted it around so they could get it off her finger. Mom had this blank stare on her face. She was just looking up at the ceiling, and she didn't say a word. But those rings symbolize for her, which is the most important earthly possession that she has, is her marriage. So the nurse, one of the nurses, put the rings in a plastic bag and gave them to me. Later that day, Dad came into the room, and I handed him the little plastic bag with the rings in it. And he looked at them and he said, man, they weren't very careful, were they? They're all mangled and twisted. And he looked at Mom, who was just staring at the ceiling as Dad was processing her bent and twisted and broken rings. And he said, I'll get them repaired, and I'll make sure they fix the engraving. And then he quoted Psalm 34:3. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. So the question, married folks that are in this room, is why are you married? Why are you married? You're married to become one flesh and reflect the glory of God. You're married to magnify the Lord and exalt him together. What needs to happen in your marriage? What's the next step in your marriage to get closer to that goal? To becoming more of one flesh in exalting and worshiping